My 41 female husband, 52 male, has a second family on the side. I've been sitting with this information for almost 2 weeks now, and I still don't know how to proceed. My husband has been in what seems like a committed relationship with another woman, and he's playing happy families with her and her 3 sons. They're even planning on having a baby. A week ago, I stumbled on a TikTok account of this lady sharing her recipes, and in the background, I recognized my husband's back.
Oh my God.
I wasn't too sure at first, but after taking a real good look as his wife, I know that fool's neck, back, legs, and the clothing he was wearing, so I went looking through her posted videos just to piece together a confirmation of it really being my husband, and I continued to keep an eye on him and his movements, but he seemed normal. It's clear to me now that he has his cheating down to a science. Every time he went on his work trips, she'd post these videos saying she's cooking a new recipe because her man is coming back from his work trip. She'd plate the food up, and I'd recognize his grubby hands by the look and the way he'd hold the cutlery. He has a peculiar way of holding it. Kind of looks like a Neanderthal discovering forks and knives. I can't believe this bastard has been with her for 3 years. I don't know how he found the time to start an entire relationship on the side. I thought we were happy. He tells me he loves me all the time, always brings me a gift from his work trips. When he's home, we have a great life and pretty much have 4 to 6 times a week. We talk all the time. We've been married for 21 years and we have 2 daughters. We lost our eldest son 10 years ago, but we worked through it and got closer than ever before. We are even due to have our 22nd anniversary, and it's his turn to plan it. We alternate who plans the anniversary each year. I know he's been planning an elaborate party for us, so why is he cheating? I'm so angry and don't know what steps to take. I am utterly distraught. I thought we were happy. I thought he loved our little life. I feel like I can't think and I barely know where to start. I can barely focus. What do I do and how do I do it? I love coming on here and reading things and giving advice, but now that it's me, I feel like I can't think. I nearly burned my kitchen down because I literally spaced out and forgot I was cooking.
Is that the end of it?
That is the original post.
Wow.
Okay, update. This was posted on August 28th, which would have been 3 weeks after the initial post. First, thank you all for your kindness and for all the great advice you've given me. I'm truly grateful. The past couple of weeks have been a whirlwind of emotions. I have been able to engage the services of a great divorce lawyer, and I was advised to not let my husband know that I knew of his affair. I was then finally given the go-ahead a few days ago, and well, at first, he refused to admit anything, but I was prepared for that. I showed him all of the online posts his mistress made. I also showed him pictures taken by my investigator. He still denied it, then accused me of being insane. Then, after hours of me just throwing evidence after him, he finally admitted to the affair. He tried to twist things so that he could weasel and lie his way out of it, but I was relentless. I did not let him twist reality and make me doubt the plain truth. We argued all day and all night. It was exhausting. The next morning, he tried to get on my good side because I woke up to him having made breakfast, and he was begging me to not hate him and to find it in my heart to forgive. I told him I could not and that I wanted a divorce. That brought on the waterworks, and he called me a heartless and an unforgiving bitch.
Oh my God.
He then left to take his things to his parents' house as I had asked him to leave. While he was at his parents', I went to his mistress's home. My sister went with me. She waited in the car, and well, she let me in and we talked. She wasn't even surprised I was there. I had already suspected she was aware of him being a married man, but I still gave her the benefit of the doubt. She was actually gloating when she told me about how in love he is with her, how good he is to her boys, and how he bought her the house, the car, and all the other money he spent on her.
Wow.
She then told me if I wasn't such a lazy bitch and gold digger, he wouldn't have been so easily taken.
Shut the fuck up.
And how my lack of submission and servitude was the reason he cheated. How am I a lazy bitch when I'm the primary parent and homemaker is beyond me? And how am I a gold digger? I don't understand, as I work and earn more than him.
Yeah. Wow.
As she was flapping her gums, he arrived and he was pissed off at her. He was calling me a ton, and I had texted him that I was at his mistress's house. They argued as he told her not to speak to me like that, and he, in no uncertain terms, told her that he wants to be with me, that she's ruining his chance at saving his marriage. I just thanked her for being forthcoming and continued to laugh my way out of the house because yes, my husband makes great money, but as his business partner, I own half of his business, and as his wife, I own half of all of his other assets. So I am glad that she gloated and that she confirmed that he paid for most of what she has.
That's insane.
Now I know for certain that he nor she deserves an ounce of my sympathy, and I will take back everything he ever gave her.
Good.
And much more.
Woo! I love that.
My religious husband has stopped loving our son because he came out as gay. So last month my 16-year-old son came out to us as gay. My husband and I both grew up in religious households, but when we had children, I never wanted to force anything onto them. But my husband disagreed and wanted to force religion onto our children. We argued a lot about it, as he wanted to take our kids out of school and homeschool them via Bible and scriptures, but a threat of divorce has put that insanity to a stop. Still, he pushes religion onto them in subtle ways. My son had been so nervous for a while before he came out to us, especially his father, and he begged us to take him out to a restaurant alone, without his siblings. He looked desperate, so we both agreed and my mother babysat for us. We arrived and I just had a feeling I knew what he was going to say. And when the food arrived, he finally said it, "Mum, Dad, I'm gay." I held his hand and told him that I loved him, we both did, and he will always be our son. From hindsight, I now realize my husband was being unusually quiet, but at the time I was so elated and my son looked so relieved. When we got back home that evening, my husband went straight upstairs. I assumed he went to the bathroom, but when he came down, he had a suitcase. He grabbed my son and dragged him along with the suitcase, out of the house, still yelling at him. He started calling him the F word, telling him he is going to jail and so on. Our son started crying on the driveway. I ran after them, of course. My husband called him names, and pushed him onto the driveway. He basically threw my son out. I was mad. I had no reason to legitimate reason that my husband would react this way. I knew he was still deeply religious. But this is his son, for crying out loud. I was so mad, I stood between them and told my husband to respect his son for who he is. Now, he's never been a violent man, but for the first time in the 17 years we've been married, I saw him as violent. He barged past me and laid hands on our son. I was so angry, I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave right now. He left the house angrily and drove away. He has been staying with his brother since. I love my husband and my son, I want them both to be happy, but my son is 16. He can't live without his parents' help, my husband can. I chose my son over my husband. The moment he laid hands on my son, he lost all my respect. I don't think I could ever look at him the same way. Now my son blames himself for me being upset with his father. I keep telling him it's not his fault, but it doesn't help that whenever their father does come home, he poisons our other children's minds to think it is their older brother's fault. I just want my family to be peaceful again, but my husband is refusing to talk to me for as long as I defend my son. Last week, he suggested a divorce. I love my husband so much, but if he doesn't accept my son and apologize for hurting him, I don't think I could stay married to him. My religious husband has stopped loving our son because he came out as gay. So me and my children are staying with my parents at the moment, as husband keeps showing up at the house and our son experiences major panic attacks when he does, as he fears his father berating him or laying hands on him again. I'm looking into some family therapists, LGBT-friendly therapists, etc. It is quite difficult to find some in these trying times, but I have found a couple who seem good. I also took pictures of the injuries and was ready to go to the police, but my son begged me not to do so. He called himself a failure and said he brought this upon himself, which broke my heart. This whole thing has clearly shaken him up and he's scared his dad will hate him even more. Even my parents have been trying to stop me from making such a spectacle of it, but I think some legal action should be taken, especially considering my husband threw my son not the ground so hard he dislocated his shoulder. Right now, I'm just trying to remind my son that his father should be penalized for laying hands on him, and that it's not okay, ever, for someone to lay hands on their children. I texted my husband and he has responded by telling me that he refuses to meet with me and that I should contact him via a lawyer now. He said if I accept our son there is no way he will ever be in a marriage with me. I am heartbroken that my husband wants to divorce me because those feelings have been there for 17 years, it's hard for them to just go overnight. But I do think divorce is the best option for us. He put up a facade our whole marriage, he kind of broke my trust, I don't know if I could ever allow him back in the home. It would be at the risk of harming me and my children, and he could be lying to me again. I would hate it if one day I woke up to my son not speaking to me because I chose his abusive father over him. I don't think it's worth it. I have been in contact with a couple of divorce lawyers from my area. My cousin is a solicitor and even thought divorce isn't her specialty. She was able to find me some of the best from my area. Update 2. My religious husband has stopped loving our son because he came out as gay. So my ex-husband remains homophobic. He refuses to apologize to my son. I reached out to him a couple of times after our divorce to see if maybe he had utilized that time to grow as a person, but he remained stubborn and ignorant. The love that I once had for him has gone. It took a while, but coming to terms with the fact that he was becoming an abuser made it a lot easier. And also, during the divorce he was just horrible, and calling me and my son names saying we ruined his life was really the icing on the cake. Since he was not granted visitation rights, my youngest son adjusted well to the changes in our family and home. He no longer sees his brother as the one who broke up the family, and their bond has grown a lot since then. I'm happy to report that none of my children blame themselves for the divorce and abrupt way their father left their lives. I think therapy helped the most with that. As for my son, although he does suffer from some trauma and his father is still at F-face, he has chosen to forgive him. He wants to forget that it ever even happened and to move on from that low point in his life. He has made his father aware of his stance, but the response is always something distasteful. My son has tried reaching out many times to his father, but he has not responded. As of right now, I have been steadily dating a man for the last couple of months. He has not met my children yet, as I want to make sure that this is right before I do. And also it feels too early to introduce them to another man. I want to wait before I spring this up on them.
Am I the arsehole for uninviting my sister-in-law who is in love with my husband? Story time. So my husband and I met each other at ski lodge about 9 years ago. We'll call him Steve. I was with my friends, my sister and my children, and he was with his brothers and sisters and a couple of his friends as well. We'd been talking throughout the night, and my friends and his friends set us up so we'd have to sing together. It was very High School Musical vibes. And even at this point, I could catch on to my sister-in-law's disturbing behaviour. After we had done our little song, we went to the cafe to have a little chat afterwards to get to know each other a bit more. A middle sister, who we'll call Amy, came storming up to us. And for some context, Amy was adopted at birth, so she's not a biological sister at all. She was demanding that he return back to their group. She didn't look at me once and then whined when he told her no. She actually ran off crying and then locked herself in the room, so everybody else in that room had to stay in someone else's room. It was quite the inconvenience. Fast forward to when we bought a house together. We invited our friends and family, and of course Amy was there, but she turned up wearing this like a really skimpy, sexy little clubbing outfit to a housewarming party with friends and family. She literally ignored me the whole entire time and hung off my husband the whole time. She kept kissing him on the cheek, hugging him. She touched his arm whenever he made her laugh. This girl was flirting with her own brother. People commented about how she looked like the girlfriend and I looked like some random girl. She was going around telling everybody about how he'd always said that he didn't want kids, but now he's changed his tune and is playing daddy to my daughter. She even went as far as to talk about how hot his modelling pictures were from when he'd done them in college. And if you think this is bad, things got even worse at the end of the night. This was the night when Steve proposed to me. And as soon as he got down on one knee, this bitch started crying and she ran to the bathroom. Their dad went to go check on her and then he ended up driving her straight home. After that, we didn't see her for years. She skipped our wedding, she skipped the baby shower for our new baby, she skipped family parties. I was absolutely fine inviting her to stuff because I knew she wouldn't actually turn up. She ended up having some sort of mental breakdown and was in and out of treatment for years after this. I wish this girl all the best, but I don't want her disrupting my peace. I just really hope that she gets well again. So, I'm currently pregnant and our baby shower is at the end of this month. So, my mother-in-law RSVP'd and said that Amy would actually be coming this time and asked if it was okay if she could bring her new boyfriend. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit apprehensive to agree. Well, it took all of 24 hours after this for her to start her old ways. She was texting my husband paragraphs at like 3 a.m. talking about how I destroyed the family and how I'd ruined their relationship. She was asking if he really was happy with his life because he had always said that he didn't want kids, but after I came along, he kind of changed his mind. She then was asking if he had ever thought about her this whole time when they'd not been speaking. That was the last straw for me. I asked him if he was aware of the fact that his sister was in love with him. And Steve had just shrugged his shoulders and said, well, I don't really doubt your theory. He opened up about the fact that when they were 11, she had asked him if they could cuddle and kiss. And he obviously said no. He admitted that since then, her behaviour had always been a little bit strange and dramatic. I then asked him if he would uninvite her for the baby shower because I was convinced that this girl was going to bring all the drama and I was not in the mood. And he said that he needs to speak to his parents first to see what type of state she's in. So what do you think? Am I the arsehole for telling my ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend to stop treating me like a surrogate? Story time. So I was with this guy called Steve for 3 months before he decided he was going to go back to his ex, who I'll call Amy. Wow, that's a lot. So just after we broke up, I found out that I was pregnant and I was 24 weeks along. I told Steve about it, he was over the moon, and it turned out that Amy couldn't have kids due to some health situations that she was going through. And I knew that Steve had always wanted to be a dad, so I knew that this would mean a lot to him. We decided that we wouldn't get back together and he would stay with Amy. Anyway, we found out on our first scan that I was actually having twins. He told Amy and Amy did not take this news well. So one day I get a text from Amy and she's like, please can you come over to our place? And she said that she'd really like to be a part of the pregnancy as much as possible because she would eventually be stepmom to the twins. She decided that she wanted to give me advice on how to have a home birth, a certain way to feed the babies, and what they would want to call her when they came. I was a little bit shocked by all of this because I was like, oh, my pregnancy, like my birth, I'll make my own choices. So I decided it'd be best to leave. She didn't stop though. She texted me every day asking what I was eating, how much I was exercising, what I was doing at work. She even joined a genetics counselling meeting with me and tried to make it all about her family history. Like, I'm not too really sure how you think this works, Amy, but there's none of your DNA going on here. And when it was time for a really important scan, Steve wanted Amy to come with me instead of him. But I was like, no. At this meeting, I found out the gender and I shared it on my social media, as everybody does. But then Amy posted a pregnancy announcement about how she was going to have babies, just in a different way. And this really flipping bothered me, but of course I didn't really want to say anything. Amy even went as far as to have a gender reveal party for herself, and she put it online. But I hadn't been invited to this gender reveal. She is even planning a baby shower. I was getting really wound up, so I commented on her post telling her to stop treating me like I'm a surrogate, and I very much reminded her that the children would not be hers when they arrived. I then messaged Steve and I was like, listen, I'm not going to come round again because I need to sort some things out legally here because this woman is scaring me. And that now Steve would not be invited to the birth and my mum would be my only birthing partner. Now Steve and Amy's parents are calling me names, so what do you think? Am I wrong here?
Storytime about how I dated my mom's graper. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, and trigger warning for grape. I had a very charmed upbringing. My parents were both independently wealthy and pretty much gave me everything I ever wanted. I'm also an only child, so I got their attention constantly. When I was 17, my mom and dad started having problems, and the only reason I found out is because I would hear them arguing from time to time. But in front of me, they always made the effort to be kind to each other. About a year later, I met this really cute guy at the gym. He made every effort to talk to me for about a week. Finally, after a week, he asked me out on a date, and I said yes. He was extremely charming, good-looking, handsome, kind, intelligent, everything you could ever want in a man. And did I mention that he was a very successful businessman? He had a house in Aspen, one in California, and properties all over Texas. We dated for 2 months, and all I really noticed was that he was very jealous. If he caught a guy looking at me, he would get very upset. He was very territorial, and at first I thought this just meant that he loved me. Do you see where this is going? To confuse you some more, 6 months before I met this guy, my mom had been raped. It happened while she was showing some property. The guy was never caught. My mom spent about a week in the hospital. She became a recluse. She went to live in a cabin that my dad and her owned. Well, during Christmas, I decided to take my boyfriend to this cabin. Go to part 2. Storytime about how I dated my mom's graper. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, and trigger warning for grape. After my mom got graped, she became a recluse and went to live in this really fancy cabin her and my dad owned. And like I said, I started dating this guy and it was right around Christmas. So I decided to take him to meet my parents at the cabin. Like I said, my mom was a recluse and she just wasn't the same after the grape, which of course I completely understand. It was a very traumatic thing that she went through. So when I brought my boyfriend at the time over, I could tell there was something up. She tried to stay away from him, didn't talk to him, and basically wouldn't even look him in the eye. The day after he and I arrived, she asked me if we could leave. I was extremely offended. I didn't understand why she didn't like him and she wouldn't tell me. I even got into a huge argument with my mom defending him. My boyfriend actually left earlier, and that's when my mom told me everything. My boyfriend was her graper. It all started when she had an affair with him. The affair lasted 2 months, and when she broke it off, he became obsessed. He followed her everywhere, called her every single day, and I remember that my parents had changed their phone number and I couldn't figure out why. My mom and I were both in tears. I came to the realization that I had done it with my mom's graper, and my mom was still dealing with her own trauma. We decided to tell my dad the truth. When we all went to confront him, his house was empty. There were no signs of him. He changed his number, and we never saw him again. We keep getting phone calls though, and I think it's him. He used me to get close to my mom. What should I do?
My boyfriend accused me of being a gold digger. He has no gold. I live with my boyfriend. We are poor. We live in a box flat with a tiny bathroom so small I can take a poop, wash my hands, and shower simultaneously. I work 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I'm a bartender at a club at night and a hairdresser by day. He's an Uber delivery driver who works flexible hours but only works 3 hours and spends the rest of his time investing in crypto. I do not mind being the breadwinner, but that is what I am. I am the breadwinner, hands down. Anytime I ask him to pick up more shifts, he says he will and never does. And it's coursed arguments. Our landlord has increased our rent, and I've asked for his financial help for our flat, but he says he's put his money into investments the government can't touch. He means his crypto scheme. I eventually put my foot down and told him we don't have investment money. We need housing, gas, electricity, water, and food. He told me that I talked about taking his assets and that I'm a gold digger. I was so taken aback I had to ask our roommates, Master Splinter and the Teenage Ninja Roaches, if I heard that right. I told him I worked in a club and asked if I wanted to be a gold digger. I wouldn't be standing in a shoebox with him huddling around a Yankee Candle for warmth. I wouldn't be spending my evenings trying to figure out how to make dinner with a pack of Kool-Aid, a tumbleweed, and a singular kidney bean I found in our cupboards. I told him the other men I see in the club make it rain daily, while he can't even scrape together enough sense to make it hail. He asked me if I could go somewhere else because he needed space. But we live in a 1-room apartment. Where am I supposed to go? In the kitchen sink? The more I think about it, the more angry it makes me. Even the local meth addict that sleeps on my apartment complex patio agrees he's delusional. It's a dark day when you have a more reasonable conversation with a meth addict than with your partner.